I'm traveling in the Pacific Northwest, visiting a friend named Nathan.
We have to climb the tower to unlock the landscape. It's the Ubisoft loop.
He has witnessed firsthand the fraying social bonds and the declining condition of the people in this region.
That's the downtown east side. That's where the safe injection site is. That's kind of like the notorious, more rougher area of Vancouver. The old drugs 10 years ago, people would be very aggressive. There was like a hostility in the atmosphere and the air. They'll behave differently based on different drugs that they're on. Whatever it is that people are consuming now, it turns them into like zombies.
Once a bright jewel of the West Coast, his city of Vancouver has become something far less optimistic. Nathan offered to show me what is happening here, and to see if by spending some time in nature, we could both gain some peace from the noise and think clearly about life in the modern world.
So from here, I'm going to recommend we go pretty stealthy with the footage. We're going to walk down here and just be very selective about what you get footage of. Keep the windows of footage very small. Don't let anyone feel like you're like getting a shot of them particularly. Just pick your shots carefully and don't linger on anything. And if people start to be weird about stuff, it's just, sorry, we're just passing through, getting back to our vehicle, kind of thing. I'm not going to want to stop and talk and explain anything. If we walk through an enclosed area and someone exhales smoke, hold your breath. Right? And don't breathe in to hold your breath, just.
Camera coming down.
Yeah, just up ahead you can see the police are checking out the market. They're making sure that everything is 100% above board so that nothing illegal occurs on the street.
Nathan notices a Cybertruck and finds the dynamic ironic.
This is so cyberpunk. That building right across there, that is the safe injection site.
Just straight out of...
That greenish one?
Yep.
The people who founded the organization that brought in the safe injection site, they were fellows with the Open Society Foundation, which is a George Soros foundation. And what they would do is they would take like Ivy League educated graduates, they would just find ways to get the government to pay for all of this. That was like their whole thing. They used kind of like legal gray areas to create a room where they were decriminalized in that single room. It was meant to facilitate really rapid overdose intervention. And undoubtedly like that happened. They resuscitated a lot of people, but that didn't exactly reduce the overall drug rates in the rest of the neighborhood. You could say, if anything, it provided a bit of an on-ramp where what used to be this like really dangerous, sketchy activity now became accessible to like any wayward teenager who had an argument with their parents, so to speak. And eventually it was revealed that a third-party entity came in and audited the organization, and there was really sketchy stuff going on with the books. It forced the organization into receivership. The founders of the organization no longer ran it. They then went to New York and set up a safe injection site out there. What was your impression of the neighborhood there?
Yeah, well, that was pretty wild. I mean, I've been in a lot of cities and some rougher parts of cities, but I haven't seen anything quite like that. Whatever they're doing, it doesn't seem to be helping.
What we saw there, that was like a very quiet day. Welfare Wednesdays, or we used to call them Mardi Gras Wednesdays. Way more people, constant fights on the streets. Yeah, police always having to get involved. So what we saw was like very chill, very relaxed. Hang on a second here. Yeah, this building was so cool too, Carnegie Hall. And now it's...
Oh, there's even more mobs of people here.
Oh yeah. Another cool old hotel that's total disrepair.
It just goes on and on and on.
I saw Ryan Long, the comedian, here.
Really? No
Yeah.
way.
Yeah, a wake-up call for me when I was working in the neighborhood was it was the like really old school drug addicts who had been living on the streets for a long time, who had seen the rest of their peers die. They were the ones who were saying that what was going on was insane. They would be like, it used to be really hard to be a drug addict, and now they've made it so easy that anyone can do it. And it used to just be like, you know, the really, really hardcore people, and that's just not the case anymore. When I came to Vancouver, I was like, you know, I just want to like make the world a better place, you know? And so I started working with this organization. I worked for multiple nonprofit housing organizations. I was like brought into this safe injection site when the news cameras were there, where they were announcing that the safe injection site was going to be illegal, or it was going to be legal. All my coworkers were like so happy. They were like crying tears of joy. And I was so conflicted. I was like, wait, I don't even think this is like a good thing though. Now, don't be mistaken. I'm pretty sure that's not an actual picture of the riot. I think that's a reenactment. Have to look into it though.
What's the story behind it?
People wanted more money, so they decided to trash stuff. It's about as far as I know. But it's interesting how they make these things with all these lofty ideas. Like at one point, yeah, there's the basketball hoop in here and everything, as if people were going to just kind of come here and it was going to be this wholesome thing. And now, like, it doesn't even have a rim, you know? And that's sort of how everything works out here. It's like someone on paper had this idea that this is what we're going to do, and then when it actually hit like human nature, it just falls apart. This was originally built after World War I, but it's supposed to represent just about all the wars since then, as far as I understand. Yeah, it's interesting because some of the flags now, like the second flag to the left, the flag is the red ensign, and it has that coat of arms where you have the Scottish, the English, the Irish, and the French. You've got like the ethnic founding stock that settled the country, and because of that, it's considered a statement of hatred. And for me, like, the war memorials always hit a little bit weird for me because not only did my grandfather and his brother fight in World War II, but like, I was in the military, and I was not allowed to go to the Ottawa War Memorial during the convoy because the government decided it was illegal for anyone to go there if they were from out of town. So it didn't matter that I had served in the Canadian Armed Forces myself. It was illegal for me to see the War Memorial because, you know, I wasn't an Ottawa resident. At one point, there was an actual serial killer operating out of the city that I lived in. And they couldn't catch him, and he would like taunt the police by defacing the gravestones of the people who he killed.
Whoa.
Right? And even though I grew up like roaming around the streets when that was going on, it still seemed like safer than it is now. Because back then it was sort of like, well, yeah, there's just like the one killer out there. So just, you know, like watch out for a guy who tries to approach you. And now it's like, well, just everything is chaos, and you like can't trust your neighbors is the way it feels a lot more.
Nathan seeks refuge and peace out here, far from the managed chaos of the city.
Why are we out here? Well, for one, it's just kind of nice to get away, but it's also, it's kind of like the hoops that we need to jump through now in order to get a piece of this, and how far removed this is from it being a part of like our normal lives, I guess, at least compared to the city. it's also so artificial what's happening in the cities, and it feels so
Like talking about the drugs or talking about like the culture?
just life.
Yep.
Like the supply, the food chain, the supply lines, where water's coming from, where the fact that people are able to, they could go through days without ever having to like leave their house kind of thing. It's very strange and unnatural. We've made it to the lake in the middle of the mountain. The plan is to find a good spot to jump in the water and swim across to this little island. We might have to improvise a raft in order to get our stuff across, so it should be pretty fun.
We find the best spot to cross the lake, but the water is much colder than we expected, and the air temperature is dropping rather quickly.
So our priority is going to be first electronic equipment, like that's the highest priority. Electronic equipment. Next is sleeping systems, because we don't want those wet. Next, like clothing. I guess that goes equal with sleeping systems.
Just sealed Ziplocs like this, put the camera in. I feel like a camera would probably float decently in a sealed Ziploc, assuming it's secure enough. So, oh, it's working.
It is
Toss
buoyant.
it, yeah.
So that's just our sleeping stuff.
Carefully packing our clothes, sleeping gear, and electronics in plastic bags, we carefully make our way back and forth 4 times to get everything over to the island.
Not too bad, second time around. Yeah.
Alright, in you go.
Oh. One of my great regrets in life was that I didn't drop out of high school.
Oh, really?
Well, in retrospect, what I should have done is I probably should have dropped out and then like whatever written my GED or whatever the equivalent or something, because by the time I graduated high school, I felt so cooped up. I was so sick of sitting in that chair during the prime of my youth. Yeah, at that point I was a black belt in martial arts too. I could run up walls and do all kinds of flips and everything, and I just had so much energy and vitality, and I knew that I spent so much of that just sitting in that stupid chair under those fluorescent lights, and I hated it. And so as soon as I graduated, while I was in high school, I worked at a hardware store for a while, saved up some money, and when I graduated, I just went to the other side of the world. Ended up in the Himalayas. This was in 2004 during their civil war, the Nepalese Civil War. And yeah, I hiked up to Mount Everest Base Camp in a time that was, you know, it's not like it is now where there's a lot of tourists or anything like that.
During an actual civil war.
Oh yeah. Like ran into the Maoists, and you know there would be the King soldiers and the Maoists, and they would be getting in gunfights and stuff. And
You're how old?
I was 18, fresh out of high school. You know, I would be like, okay, I'm gonna go take. And this was like before, you know, this was when we were just starting to get cable internet, so we didn't even have. You know, a lot of times it was still dial-up internet.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's not like you just send a text message home to your family or anything like that. You get a bus ticket to go travel to a particular place, and oh, the Maoists have decided that there's a strike, and if anyone is in any of these buses, they're gonna blow them up. And so it was just like all this, and that wasn't all the traveling that I did. That was just one leg of it. And I kind of spent enough time away to become something else. And it really shattered my conception of home. And when I came back to Canada, I felt like I had nothing in common with my peers anymore. And people would be talking about what was on TV and these things, whatever hockey game or something. And I felt like I had nothing in common with them. And I had too much to figure out. Some of it is kind of like being young and having a certain type of angst. That those like existential questions where you haven't figured out your purpose yet. And if you travel enough, that is like an amplifier. You end up being burdened by the feeling that you don't want to waste your life. Because there comes this question where, well, if you survived, you must have survived for a reason. So now you have this great responsibility to make the most of it. And it can drive you crazy if you're not careful. And that was what I had a hard time with, was I felt like every day, I felt like I was wasting the day unless I did something incredible. And that's not like a thing. You know, like eventually you climb enough mountains. I remember one time I saved someone's life. They were choking and I gave them the Heimlich maneuver, like J thrust or whatever. And it was like the most anticlimactic thing ever. Yeah, I think it would be the source, like where that feeling is coming from, because God will prompt you to do things. And if he's not prompting you to do anything, like something's not right. But if it's coming from you, and it can be really difficult to tell the difference, but if it's coming from you because you have some idea that you're supposed to be something that you were never asked to be.
So what's this? Got a shovel out here?
Yeah, I don't know.
Someone burying a body? How'd they get out here?
I'm not going to bury it with a snow shovel, but yeah.
Bury a snowman. Oh, let's see. It's the good stuff here. Let's go.
Gourmet.
Fine. Home cooked.
There is an element of it. It is appropriate to petition God and wrestle with God and like kind of ask him to give you that reason, whatever that reason ends up being. But you can't like kind of forever be trapped there. You can't just endlessly wrestle with God. It's like you do that and then you set your course and then you pursue it. Wrestling is just one phase of it.
All right, we finished camping. We made it through the night. How was it?
Pretty sleepless. Not the most comfortable.
A bit cold. Yeah, we maybe got like an hour between us. Yeah. Hour and a half. But it is beautiful out here. We still need to swim across the lake one more time. It's looking a bit chilly. So we'll see the result.
We didn't have a fire because you're not supposed to have fires up here. So when we swam across last night, it left us in a bit of a deficit for the heat. And then it's actually quite cold up here, even though it's middle of summer, really close to the solstice, warm time of the year. But in here, it sure gets cold. And we wanted to be relatively light because we knew we were going to have to swim stuff across, so we didn't bring like big sleeping bags. So yeah, it was a cold night.
Modernity is life at odds with our instincts, giving rise to a host of new maladies on top of our existing fallen tendencies. Nietzsche, in Zarathustra's voice, said, "There is more wisdom in your body than in your deepest philosophy." If modernity, and if the cities in particular, are at war with our instincts, perhaps we should take a step back from the noise and spend some time in the natural world and listen to those instincts.